Today we're going to talk about some mistakes that I made in starting a business. And these are not all the mistakes I made, because I made a lot. I'm just going to talk about 3. And I have a feeling some of them are going to be a little bit contentious. Some of you watching might disagree that these are mistakes. I think it's important to try and learn other people's hard lessons the easy way. And these are some hard lessons for me, things that cost me dearly in making them as mistakes. So here we go. Mistake number 1. We did not start with enough money. Now this one is going to upset people who believe in lean, who believe in starting something scrappy, not being kind of bloated by too much money. But the problem is money is a resource. And if you don't have enough resource in terms of money, you have to find that resource somewhere else. Chances are that resource is going to be you and your labor. You're going to have to work harder than you'd have to if you'd had a little bit more money. Now, I'm not saying you should go out and raise enormous amounts of money. I think too much money can be even more of a curse than not enough. But not enough is a problem. And I don't think that the business would be that much bigger than it is now if we'd started with more. But it would be better. And it would have been a much better experience to start it. It would have been less painful, less hard. This one you could disagree with. But for me, I think it's important that whatever you think you need, you should add 50% or even 100% to that, to give yourself breathing room, give yourself a chance to become profitable without having to compromise yourself or your business along the way. Now, this does tie into the second mistake that I made. And this one, there's really no question. I fell for the myth of the heroic entrepreneur. I fell for that story that we tell that the right thing to do, the correct thing to do, is to work every hour God sends, right? You should be doing a 100-hour week minimum to start your business successfully. You should be grinding. You should be hustling. And it's wrong. And it really messed me up. It nearly burnt me out. It turned the thing that I was the most passionate about into something that I resented. Now, when you start, working every hour feels amazing. It feels really good. It feels so good to get home from work and work a little bit more because it's yours. The challenge here is that how long do you want to run a business for? 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, the rest of your life? You can't keep that pace up. This remains for me probably the mistake I regret the most. Like it was physically damaging to me, mentally damaging to me, and I watch it happen over and over and over again to people in so many industries. It's back to that kind of classic work smarter, not harder. And the other thing is that if you give yourself 100 hours a week, if you give yourself 12 plus hours a day to do your work, that'll be how long the work takes. No one can work really hard 100 hours a week. No one can. And yes, some of what you do is quite laborious, quite physical. You can't really hurry that up. But lots of the work you do on your business rather than in your business, well, that's the work that just swells to fill the time. And you end up with no life outside of work and not being a hugely fun person and not having a lot of friends and not being particularly happy. But it feels good, so beware. And that's a really big mistake for me. And like I said, I like to try and learn people's hard lessons the easy way. And that way I didn't make a huge number of mistakes that I see a lot of other people make. In part, this was because I was given some great recommendations before I started my business. And I'm going to give a recommendation or two to you now because this video is sponsored by Audible. That means that if you sign up using audible.com/James Hoffmann or text James Hoffmann to 500 in North America, you get a 30-day free trial that includes 1 free audiobook or 2 Audible originals. And here's my recommendation. I would recommend Michael E. Gerber's The E-Myth Revisited. Don't judge a book by its cover. This is a phenomenally good book for someone who is passionate about a thing, let's say coffee, and they want to make a business out of that thing. I avoided so many mistakes that people make who try and transition from doing a thing they're passionate about into running a business that does that thing. And if you want a different recommendation because you're not planning to start a business, then I would recommend Winners Take All by Anand Giridharadas. This book fundamentally changed the way that I see this industry and how it approaches inequality. Its efforts to change it, while at the same time its efforts actually to preserve it. It is a hugely important book that is incredibly relevant and important to anyone who's working in coffee who wants to make a change. And the great thing about audiobooks is you can listen to them on your way to work, at your lunch break, on your way home. You can turn your commute into an investment in yourself. So if you want to give it a try, click the link in the description down below, and I'll tell you now about a third mistake that I made. The third mistake was that we kind of ran a business in the early days like a family. And maybe that sounds like a weird thing, but it's easy to create a family dynamic inside a small business. And the problem with families, with everyone's family, is that families are dysfunctional. There is an inherent dysfunctional nature to them. In a practical terms, in business terms, family feeling generates loyalty. Loyalty to an employee and loyalty from the employee or team member to the business. And that feeling of loyalty can often cloud decision making. Someone may choose to stay in a role that doesn't really work for them out of loyalty to the company, to the people inside it. Or, an employer may keep somebody in a role that doesn't work for them out of loyalty to that person. That's not really to the long-term benefit of either the employee or the company. But it's done with the best intention through this kind of familial thing. And relationships inside family units can easily become emotional and complicated. I'm not saying that you can't have healthy interpersonal relationships with the people that you work with. I'm not saying you can't like them. I'm not saying that that's bad. But I'm saying that the dynamic of a family is quite a separate, distinct one to that of a small business, potentially. And I think allowing a family dynamic to form is probably a mistake. And it certainly was a mistake for me that I felt cost the business and actually was detrimental to a number of people that worked as part of that team. And I feel bad about that. I regret that. And I see it as a mistake for that reason. And now, outside of a family kind of dynamic, I think you can have a really healthy culture inside a company based on mutual respect, based on collaborative working, but it's not a family dynamic. And I think it's hard to talk about, but I think if you've experienced it, either as someone inside a business like that or someone who ran a business like that, then you'll understand what I'm talking about. But this is the point where I'd really like to hear what you have to say. Did any of these resonate with you, either as someone who runs a business or who works inside one? Do you disagree? Do you agree that I really missed something? I would love to hear your thoughts down below. And again, do you want to hear more of these stories of my mistakes, of my failures from the past? There are a lot, and I'm more than happy to talk about them. So let me know. Leave me a comment down below. I'm going to say thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a great day.